Welcome back to another English online session. I hope you all fine. Today I am going to explain the life of Albert Einstein. Imagination is more important than knowledge. Knowledge is limited. Imagination encircles the world. These are the beautiful words of Einstein. His perspective about understanding is very different from others. He is one of the intelligent scientists ever seen, a genius. His theory of relativity is one of the examples of his level of understanding. So today I am going to narrate or explain chapter number 4 from the text Snapshot, Albert Einstein at School. This particular chapter explaining about Albert Einstein's school days, what kind of a student he was at school, what he exactly interested. Now let me give you an introduction about this lesson and the writer. The lesson Albert Einstein at School is an extract from the biography of Albert Einstein named The Young Einstein by Patrick Pringle. In this lesson, Patrick familiarizes the reader with those years in Einstein's life where he was struggling each day in school, and as each day passed, the school diploma felt like a far-fetched dream. It throws light upon a few encounters with his teacher, what he felt about the neighborhood he lived in, and how he had only one good friend, Yuri. The way Albert strategizes to get out of the miserable place, his school, and how things turned around in the end makes the story even more interesting. So particularly this story, this chapter is explaining what sort of a student Albert Einstein and how he struggled because he is not interested the way the lessons are taught in the school, and his area is different than what taught in the school. So how he just miserably struggled and also just moved out of the school, tried to move out of the school because he couldn't continue there. He is not at all interested in the studies. So all these things explained in this chapter. The lesson begins with an account of Albert Einstein with his history teacher, where the teacher asks him about a year in which the Prussians defeated the French at Waterloo. As usual, Einstein does not remember it, to which Mr. Brown points out that the reason for this is because Einstein never bothers to learn them. Albert justifies that he finds it pointless to digest dates because one can always look up in books whenever needed. The answer left Mr. Brown dumbstruck for a while. Finally, he replies and tells him that similarly, most of the things being taught in school can be looked up in the books, and there is no point in mugging up facts. Einstein, without realizing the statement was sarcastic, agrees with him. So here we can understand the attitude of Einstein. He never support mugging up the facts. He always wanted to do something creative or innovative. So he never thought of by hearting the years about war and such things. This is Einstein at his school. He never by hearted anything. That's why he had a disagreement with his history teacher. From the first few lines, we understand that what kind of a student and why Einstein disagreed with his teacher. He never wanted to mug up or by heart anything. He always wanted to question why, why not? And also, he always supported creative thinking and innovative ideas. The professor concluded that if Einstein doesn't see any point in grasping facts, then he should not also be a believer and follower of education. Albert very clearly replies that he is undoubtedly vested in the idea of education, but according to him, merely digesting facts is not education. The history teacher then, in an attempt to mock him in front of the whole class, asked about his elaborate version of ideal education. Again, being very clear about his idea of education, Albert explains that it is useless to acquire knowledge on dates of battles and a number of men that were compromised. What is important is to read and analyze the reasons that were responsible for the battle between the two armies. Mr. Brown got extremely angry and interrupted Albert's speech and punished him to stay for an extra class, even if it were of no good to anyone, including Albert. So, here we can understand that his perspective about education is different. He doesn't bother about the years when it happened or how many people died, how many people participated. The question is why that war happened. What are the reasons for that war? So the divergent thinking, we can see a divergent thinking in Albert Einstein. He is not satisfied with by hearting facts and dates of battles and historical events, but he is looking for why it happened, the reason why that exactly happened. Upon these acts of Albert Einstein, the teacher then calls him a disgrace, expressing his displeasure of having him around. Albert mentions that he doesn't want to be there either. The teacher then remarkably call him an ungrateful boy who should be ashamed and suggests that his father to take him away from school. That afternoon, Albert was unhappy. When he left school, it was not that the day was bad, but in general, days were getting bad at school, and he hated the thought of going to school every morning. His only wish was that his father would take him to Italy along with him, but it was pointless to ask because he would anyway make him stay here until he completed his diploma. So, after this, we understand that not only that particular day, all the day, all those days were not very happy one for Albert Einstein. He is not in a position to stay in that school and continue his education. He always wanted to move away or move to another institution to continue his education, but his father, he knew that his father wouldn't allow that. He asked Albert Einstein to continue there, so he was not asking or informing it to his father. School was surely an unpleasant place for Einstein, but his place of stay in Munich was nothing better than the school because the less availability of cash with his father, he had to stay within the poorest neighborhood in Munich. However, poverty, bad food, dirt, and lack of comfort hardly bothered him. It was the frequent fight at the place that he hated. Even the landlady's family was violent one, where she used to hit her kids every now and then, while her husband beat her every Saturday. After he came back home drunk. Now here we are introduced to his friend Yuri, Albert Einstein's one of the closest friend Yuri, who is also not very fortunate. He reminds Albert that he should be glad about the fact that he has a room of his own to live, even though the neighborhood is not something he likes. In return, Albert reminds Yuri that even though Yuri lives among poor students, they are all civilized and non-violent. Yuri interrupts to correct him that not all of them have manners and only last week one was killed in a fight. So Albert Einstein has a good opinion about Yuri's place of stay, but he shared something terrible happened last week only, and not the school and neither the place where he was staying. Never Albert Einstein got some comfort or a peace of mind. He always in struggle while he was in Munich because the lack of cash he has to spend in a very poor neighborhood. He couldn't concentrate in studies or any other work. Yuri continued that the one who killed him did not face any circumstances, any kind of punishments, except he was being not allowed to play a duel. Again, duel means fight. The only regret that a guy had was that he won't be able to show off a scar as a symbol of bravery. Albert sighs at the state of students pursuing diplomas. Yuri then gives Albert some hope by saying that he will be a student too, to which Albert expresses his doubtfulness. Albert expresses his concern to his cousin Elsa, saying that it is not very likely for him to pass exams. Elsa, who had come to visit Einstein in Munich, normally lived in Berlin, the place of her family business. Elsa tried to convince Albert to learn just enough to pass the exam by learning and repeating facts, and that she had seen a lot of dull guys do it. Albert again exclaimed that learning things by heart is not his suit. So we understand that by hearting, I already told you, by hearting or what to say, mugging up the facts or years is not suitable for Albert Einstein. And here we understand that he has a cousin and she used to visit him. She was residing at Berlin in Germany, and she used to come to visit Albert Einstein, and she always concerned about Albert Einstein's studies and always encourage him to learn enough to get pass marks. But Albert Einstein wasn't able to do that. He could not by heart anything. That's a problem with Albert Einstein. Elsa presented her counter agreement that anyone can learn like a parrot, but for that, one needs to try, which Albert doesn't. She then expresses an irony by mentioning that he always has a book under his arm. Albert tells her that it is a book on geology, which is not taught in school. He adds that they are hardly taught science at school. Elsa doesn't understand why he is reading the book if it is not a part of his curriculum. Albert clarifies that he likes studying science and consider it a reason good enough to read it. Elsa understands this but also warns him that it is not going to help him in passing his diploma. Albert was very fond of reading science books, and the only other thing that brought him joy and peace was music. He played the violin a lot, but only until his landlady told him to stop. The sound irritated her, and she justified by saying that kids already make a lot of noise in the house. Albert wanted to say that she is the one who made her kids cry all the time, but somehow resisted the urge to say it, probably for the better. So, here we understand that he was not interested in the history books or learning facts, but he is very much interested to learn science. Especially, he used to read a book on geology. He always had this book on his hand, and he was reading that books even though the book wasn't going to help him in his exams and diploma, but he's interested to read a lot of science books. After being in Munich alone for 6 months, Albert expressed to Yuri that he feels it's high time he moves away from here. He sees no point in carrying on like this because if he does, it is only going to result in wastage of his father's money, everyone's time and efforts. Yuri asked if he has any backup plans, to which Albert says that going to Milan wouldn't be such a great idea because his father would send him back. They were discussing all about it when suddenly an idea occurred to him. He asked Yuri if he knew any doctors. Unfortunately, Yuri could never afford to go to one, but he did have a lot of friends from the medical field. Albert idea included a nervous breakdown and a doctor that could advise him that school is bad for him and he needs to stay as far as he could from it. So here they are trying to get a fake certificate that Albert Einstein has a nerves breakdown, so he should stay away from school for some time. And he is trying to get help from Yuri because Yuri had a lot of friends in medical field. If any one of the doctors who give this certificate means Albert Einstein reasonably can move away from the school. Yuri didn't think the idea was a success because it was merely likely for a doctor to advise something like that. Albert still wanted to give it a try and find a doctor that specializes in nerves. Yuri offers to ask one of his friends about such a doctor. Albert expressed his gratitude. Yuri told him not to have his hopes high but little. Albert was all hopeful and positive about finding a suitable doctor that will be willing to help him. He even went to the extent of offering to showcase an actual breakdown to make it seem more real. He was full of hope, and Yuri had never seen him feeling like that. Albert told him not to worry about that because a day or two at school would restore him back to his troubled state. So here they are planning to get a certificate, and Yuri didn't support this idea. Still, Albert is trying to give a try, and he even started acting like a person who got nerves breakdown. And he is telling that if he continue like this in this school, he may get a nerves breakdown actually. Albert was right when Yuri saw him the next time. He actually seemed troubled by this time. Albert had given up and he actually was expecting nerves breakdown if it continued like this. This would have surely made the doctor's work easier. Yuri conveyed to him that he has found just the doctor for him and has an appointment the next evening while giving him the address. Albert read the doctor's name, which is Dr. Ernst Weil, and asked Yuri if he specialized in nerves. Yuri told him that he was not exactly a neurospecialist and that he qualified as a doctor only last week, and that Albert could even be his first patient. Yuri mentioned that he has known him for a while now and warned Albert to not to lie to him because he was no fool. Yuri asked him to be honest and not pretend to have nerves breakdown. He immediately mentioned that it was also not possible because Albert is the world's worst liar. He spent the next evening thinking about the things he was going to say to the doctor. He thought so much that he feared he would actually get a nerves breakdown. Albert went to see the doctor and told him that he really does not have the right choice of words to describe his miserable situation. The friendly doctor comforted him and told him that Yuri had already done it for him. It turned out that Yuri had told Dr. Vale the entire truth and how Albert wanted the doctor to think he had a nervous breakdown because of school. Albert expressed his displeasure with Dr. Vale knowing the entire truth because he felt that the doctor would not help him now. As a result, he would have to go back to school again. The friendly doctor comforted him by saying that his situation was well understood, even when he had not told anything about it. Albert was surprised with the doctor's reply and asked him how he got to know all about Albert. From these lines, we can understand that his friend, Albert Einstein's friend Yuri, understood that Albert Einstein is almost at the verge of a nervous breakdown. So he arranged a doctor and he told everything to the doctor. But it gives surprise to Albert Einstein, knowing that even though the doctor knew everything, he was ready to help him. So I am stopping the explanation here. The balance part of this chapter, I will explain it in the next video lesson. Now all of you just read the text. Don't forget to have a dictionary while reading. Whenever you find a new word, just search the meaning in the dictionary. Write the word above that particular word. See you in the next class. Bye.